Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is Saturday evening, the 4th of May, 2019, and it is Saturday Night Silver with Smaulgld. And tonight we're going to be taking a look at the swelling silver stockpiles at Comex. And we're also going to take a look at Indian silver imports, Turkish silver imports, Perth Mint and US Mint sales up to date through May 2019. We're going to take a look at the silver ETF. And we're going to take a look at the silver price. Also, take a look at the silver price by year, going back to 1970. So we've got a lot to look at, a lot of charts. Remember, we do Saturday Night Silver with Smaulgld each Saturday, where we focus solely on silver. And we leave the news and the gold and the cryptocurrencies and the economics and the Fed behind. And on Sunday night, we do Solid Gold Sunday with Smaulgld, where we focus just on gold. So welcome Smaulgld mug stackers and game changers. Let's take a look at what we have for you tonight. Plenty of charts, plenty of data, plenty of analysis, and we're going to see what you have to say. Let's open it up let's take a look at the price of silver. I'm going to take a look at the price over the week, over the month, and take a look at some historic pricing, take a look at the gold-silver ratio first. All right, let's see what we got here. Pricing. I'm going to take also a look at silver production. Now, we've got a lot to go through, so this might take some time. If you enjoy silver, you're going to get a dose of silver tonight. Okay. Now, the price of silver did end up on the week up, but it did not make it to $16. It ended at about $14.94. And you can see this is a one-year chart. We did hit a low of just about $14 in, I think it was November last year. We haven't been able really to burst above the $16 level this year. We're in the low 16s earlier in February, but haven't been able to sustain that 16 handle. And we've basically been around a 15 handle since February. Now you can see last year, just a year ago, we were up around the 17. So we're not really moving forward with the price of silver. And of course, the gold-silver ratio, as a result, is hitting higher as well. And you can see it's up around 87, 88 to 1. And we've talked about this. We're not going to belabor the point, but silver and gold really do have two separate profiles, demand profiles. And that really does explain why the gold-silver ratio is where it is. Silver is not, no matter what you hear on the other channels, is not the traditional store of value. It has a historic monetary component. It has no current monetary component. It is not a tier 1 asset. It's not covered by FDIC rules. Banks don't hold it. You may see pictures of the vaults of the Russian bank holding silver. Yeah, they hold silver, but it's not a financial asset. That has a lot to do with it. The bulk of silver demand is for industry and jewelry and silverware. Only about 10-15% of silver's demand is for investment, which means it's not as popular as an investment as gold is. Gold is close to 50% investing demand, and the rest is jewelry and some industry. So different components, and that's why the gold-silver ratio, I believe, is higher, because that investment component is not highly valued at the moment. Now, my view is if gold were to take off because of some type of financial calamity, financial collapse, currency crisis, whatever, and gold got expensive, that's when silver might increase. If they think that the investors are thinking that gold is a little too expensive, there is some of that overflow into silver. But you can see, you've been hearing for years, unsustainable gold-silver ratio should be 16 to 1, 15 to 1, 1 to 1, all nonsense. The only time the gold-silver ratio was 16 to 1 or 15 to 1 was when the U.S. had a bimetallic standard. We're going back over 100 years ago. It has not been 16 to 1 since it was 16 to 1 for about 15 minutes in 1980, and that was about it. That was a statutorily set gold-silver ratio. Yes, it was based on the relative rarity of silver, but it wasn't based on market demand. It was based on the fact that they wanted to have two metals in the financial system, and when silver was pulled out of the financial system, effectively demonetized and used solely for coins, That's when the gold-silver ratio began to rise. And it also was still never 16 to 1, even when the price of gold was fixed from 1934 to 1971 by an act of Congress, the Gold Act of 1934, which fixed the price of gold at $35 an ounce. Sorry, we're not going to mention gold again. All right. Well, let's just take a look historically at some of the pricing of silver. Silver by year. I don't know if you can see this chart here, but there's a lot of red on that chart. If you look from 1970 to 2018, more likely than not, other than from 2002 to 2007, silver really does not put together long strings of up years. If you look from 1970 to 1977, you had 3 years of it up from 72 to 74. In 1978, you had 2 years in a row, but then you had 2 years in 1980, 81, where it was down. Then you had 4 years in a row from 83, 84, 85, 86, where it was down. 1987 was up, and then it was down 5 years in a row from 1988, 1989, 1990, 1991, 1992. Then it was up another year in 93, and then it was down in 94, up in 95, down in 96, up in 97, down in 98. You can't get any consistency, it seems, out of silver, other than that period of time from 2002 to 2007, and that really was during the period of time where gold was also heading higher. Since then, 2008, the price was down. We had a great year in 2009 and 2010, 2 up years, big years, up 83% in 2010. And since 2010, the silver price has risen on a year-over-year basis just 3 times, down in 2011, down in 2013, down in 2014, down in 2015, up in 2016, up in 2017, down in 2018, and down again so far in 2019. Just keep that in mind. I don't want to make a gold comparison, but that is a long period of time since 1970 where you do not have real stellar performance or any type of wealth preservation. All right, let's move on now to silver ETFs. Now, silver ETFs have been a popular way of holding silver in recent years, and this chart goes back to 2017, and up until mid-2018, the amount of silver flowing into silver ETFs was on the rise almost on a straight line since these silver ETFs came out over a decade ago. It was only towards the end of last year that the outflows went down, as you can see towards the right-hand part of the chart, but they've been increasing ever since the beginning of the year, almost back up to all-time highs. Now, this is all ETFs. This is mutual funds, ETFs, not just the SLV. But the total amount of silver in silver ETFs and similar products is over 1 billion ounces. Just keep that in mind. When people try to tell you there is no silver, run out of silver, there's 1 billion ounces just locked up in these silver ETFs. Now, let's take a look at the chart with just the ETFs, not the other products. This is a longer term chart that I've got. And you can see pretty much since 2006, even though the price, as represented by that squiggly black line, has gone down, more silver has flown into the silver ETFs, the biggest one being the one at the bottom, the SLV, which has about 310 million ounces in the most recent look there. You got the Sprott fund there, which is the pink one. That one's got, it looks like, about 50, 60 million ounces in it. So a lot of silver in the silver ETFs, and there appears to be decent demand still to purchase silver via a silver ETF. Storage costs get very expensive for silver, much more expensive than gold, simply because the ratio is 87 to 1, and it does take up 87 times more storage space in the vault, so you pay more for that. Just generally the space that it requires. So a silver ETF is a way of getting exposure to the price without having to pay the storage fees if you're going to store your silver at an insured vault. The silver ETFs have expenses, but obviously they can work on scale as opposed to an individual who may wish to stack silver at a vault and pay for that storage. All right. What else do we have before we get to Comex? Let's take a look at silver production. Another myth out there is that silver production is declining. They're running out of silver shortage. Pretty much nonsense. Silver production has been on the rise, even though it may go down 5-10% this year, or maybe last year went down 5-10%. You're at these massive amounts of 26,000, 28,000 tons. So you look at 2000, it's gone from about 19,000 tons a year to 26,000 tons a year. So if it goes down to 25, 24,000 tons a year, it's not like there's some type of dramatic shift, because look how far we have come since 1980, when it was 10,000 tons. Now, demand is up. Demand is about 1 billion ounces a year, but it's not up significantly. So there is decent global silver production. You get the best silver production out of Mexico, then Peru. Those are your two top ones, and they've been for centuries your big silver since they found the New World silver back in the 16th century. They have maintained their status as world leaders in silver production. We actually did a video called, I think it's called Silver for Silk or Silk for Silver, history of that time period when the Europeans discovered silver in Central and South America, and then used that silver to head to China to get the silk and the riches of the East. And the Chinese loved silver. They had a silver shortage, so it was somewhat of a marriage made in heaven. Europeans went nuts for spices and silk, and the Chinese were going nuts for the silver. And China, by the way, currently is the third largest. I don't have that chart tonight, but maybe I'll put it up on the Smaulgld site tomorrow. You can check it out. But China is the third largest silver producer in the world. And after that, there's it kind of falls off pretty significantly, with Mexico producing almost a third of the world's silver, along with Peru. All right. Now, let me show you this chart here. This is the same chart, but we're overlaying the silver price. There really isn't any correlation between the amount of silver that they produce and the price. Now, you would think if the price would spike that you'd get more production, but that wasn't the case in 1980. You just see silver production increasing over the last, it's really increased since 1960 on a steady incline. And that's mainly because of not necessarily new discoveries, but mining has gotten better. The low-hanging fruit is no longer there. There's not that many primary silver mines, but they've learned how to extract silver from as a byproduct of other mines like tin, copper, zinc. There's a lot of metal, even gold. The mines they can extract silver from, and that's where 60-70% of the silver is coming from. And you can see that it's not price dependent. Now, gold would be. Now, why is that? That's because gold is it's rare, it's harder to extract, and it's more tied to the price of gold. However, gold production also has risen in a very similar way because of the money that's put into it and the enhanced mining techniques that are enabling miners to get gold easier than just getting the low-hanging fruit. All right, now let's move on to, let's talk about the mint sales, the U.S. Mint and the Perth Mint sales. Do I have the Perth Mint? Yes, I do. Let's do U.S. Mint sales first. A history of the American Silver Eagle. Let's talk about the Silver Eagle. I like to mention this a lot. If you look from 1986 to 2007, the American Silver Eagle was never a big seller. The fascination with a silver coin just wasn't there. I mean, you're talking about in 1996, only 3 million were sold. Even in the first year of the American Silver Eagle, they only sold 5.1 million. Now, granted, they started in October, so you didn't get a full year. And then 1987, you had your big year of 9.4 million. But the novelty wore off, and it was not a big seller. In fact, there were years during this period of time between 1986 and 2006 where they would sell 3 or 4 times the amount of silver as gold coins. The gold coins were of the big interest. And it makes sense because gold had been, you weren't allowed to own gold from 1934 to 1974 in the United States. That Roosevelt executive order lasted until Jerry Ford ended at the end of 1974. And then from 1974 to 1986, there were no gold coins minted at all in the United States. So if you wanted to buy gold back then, I believe your only options really were the South African Krugerrand, which was a 91.67% 22 karat gold coin, which is what the American Gold Eagle is. So those were years, a pretty dry years from 86 to 2008. During the financial crisis, you can see that silver became a favorite. And even after they say the financial crisis was over towards the end of 2010-11, even though they were still doing QE, and even though silver peaked in price in 2011, we continued to see hefty demand for silver from 2012, 13, 14, and peaking in 2015 at 47 million ounces or 47 million American silver eagles. And in 2016, we were on a record pace, looking like they were going to sell 55, 60 million. And then it fell off the table at the end of 2016. And you can see we're on a steady decline. 18 million in 2017, 15.7 million in 2018. Now, so far through early May, American Silver Eagle sales are at about 8.2 million, but we're back now towards pre-2008 levels because 2017 was below that, 2018 was below that, and it looks like 2009 is heading above. We're going to take a look in a minute. The comparison between this year and last year will probably beat the 15.7. We might not beat the 18, but you can see we're back towards the 2008 and prior year levels after having had that big run-up. All right, let's see what's happening with this year. Now, this year's been a strange year because it looked like this year, 2019, was going to be not back to the glory years of 2015 or 14 or 13, but something a little better than 2018 and 2017. And we started out with 4.175 million ounces, or American Silver Eagle sold. And that was a big increase over January last year. In February, they were 2.157. It was much better than the 942. And in February is when the U.S. Mint said no mas. So, we've got to stop production because we don't have any silver planchets left. So that was it. And they stopped, and then they restarted, and then they stopped again in March. But even though there seems to have been these stoppages, the demand also stopped. Now, it's quite possible that this is all on purpose because what happens is at these prices, $14, $15, new American Silver Eagles really are not a good bargain. I should have brought the charts with me, but I've talked about this before because the U.S. Mint charges authorized purchasers. They don't sell the Silver Eagles directly to retail or even to online bullion dealers other than Apmex, which is a authorized purchaser. They charge $2 a coin, no matter what the price is. So if the price of silver is $14, they charge $16. And of course, if a dealer's going to make any money, they got to charge at least another quarter on top of that. So you're going to pay $16 and a quarter at least, and probably more, for a brand new American Silver Eagle, and that is a hefty premium, right? Because you're paying $2 and a quarter over the price of $14. That's a 16% premium. So what generally happens, I would think, during this time period is that if the 2019s aren't available, but there's still silver demand, what bullion dealers will do, and people are selling back to them prior dated American Silver Eagles, and they're only getting maybe spot plus a quarter, spot plus $1, something lower, they can sell to you older American Silver Eagles in great condition for something perhaps less than $2 over spot. So it doesn't make sense to buy the 2019s a new one. And if that's the case, even though there's silver demand, also doesn't make sense for the U.S. Mint to really worry about ramping up production because the demand can now be satisfied from the 600 million plus American Silver Eagles that they've already minted, and people are turning into dealers, and then they can on-sell them to you. And the dealers actually can make a decent profit in the secondary trade of the American Silver Eagles predated 2019. Now, some people were saying, well, 2019 is going to be a rare year, and it could be a key date. I don't think so. I think Salvate Metal and I were discussing this. I mean, if you look so far, this year's looks like it's going to be better than last year. 8.447 million sold already. 2018 through this period, 6.387. The key date year, let's just go back for American Silver Eagle, the people who collect these things, is 1996, 1997 when they sold under 4 million. So it's not going to be a big key date. There might be some premium on it in 5 or 10 years, but they're not really numismatic coins, and that's why people looking to buy American Silver Eagles are going to probably being sold 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 dated coins, because that's where the most of them were sold. That's where the bulk of American Silver Eagles were sold, not from 1986 to 2000. And also look at 2000 and 1999. Those were the years when people were worried about Y2K and disaster. That's when, I don't have the chart to show you. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow night, because tomorrow night is Solid Gold Sunday with Smaulgld. I'll show you how those years were big gold years, big gold eagle sale years. But silver was not considered the apocalyptic metal that people had to have. It became the apocalyptic financial metal to have, it looks like, from 2009 through 2015-16. Right, that is the U.S. mint. Let's take a look at the Perth mint. The Perth mint's a bit different. Perth mint's a smaller mint, but they haven't had this dramatic drop-off the way that the U.S. mint has had in recent years. Let's take a look here. This is a monthly chart I've done. And you can see it's been ever since they introduced, see that big spike there, September 2015. That is when they introduced the Australian silver kangaroo bullion coin, because before that they used to do these limited issuances of, they still do them, kookaburras and koalas and all different types of coins, but they were limited edition. The kangaroo is issued in amounts needed to meet demand, and because the Perth Mint actually makes planchets and has silver refining, they have no trouble meeting and keep ramping up demand. Whereas Canada and the U.S. Mint, the Canadian U.S. Mint, they don't make the planchets. They rely on third parties to get them. So what happened in 2015, that big year we had the U.S. Mint, actually ran out, and that's when the Perth Mint jumped in. They said, hey, we can meet the demand with our own coin. Slap a kangaroo on there, queen on the front, kangaroo on the back, and we're off to the races. And like the U.S. Mint, prior to then, the Perth Mint was known as a gold mint, more focused on selling gold. But since they introduced that coin, you could see the dividing line there between September 2015 and before, that generally they never used to sell 1 million ounces in a given month. And you could see there's many months since then of which they've sold 1 million. Never sold 2 million or even 3 million again. That 1 year is 3.6 million, but you can see many months where they've sold 1 million ounces. And this year is not bad. I mean, I think the last month was 900,000. The month before that, in March, was 900,000. April was 906,000, something like that. Let me tell you exactly what they are. Actually, April is slightly lower, as you can see on the chart there. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But you can see that there's some decent numbers, and they're a lot more consistent in selling. Now, from what I understand, these are not sales primarily to Australians, although obviously they do sell to Australians. But the Perth Mint is very close, well, not very close, but it's closer to points in Asia. And from what I understand, they do some shipments to China. They do some shipments a lot in Asia. And they also get Chinese tourists visit, and they apparently buy from the mint directly. So they have a more consistent profile there of selling. They don't have that massive drop-off. In fact, they had an increase in 2015, just like the U.S. Mint did, but theirs has not been. They're actually doing better since 2015 than the U.S. Mint. The U.S. Mint has fallen off dramatically. While we've fallen off a bit here in the Perth Mint, it's still better than pre-September 2015, as you can see, because there's been many months over 1 million ounces sold at the Perth Mint. All right, that's it for the Perth Mint. That's it for the U.S. Mint. Let's do Turkey. Everyone talks about Turkey and gold, but last month, or the most recently reported month of March, 67 tons of silver imported into Turkey. Turkey has a very large silver mine as well. So the fact that they're importing a lot of silver shows that they do like their silver. Turks are probably in Europe, or half in Europe, half in Asia, but the biggest per capita buyers of gold, and Germans are up there as well. But Turkey's very big on the precious metals, and that's a big month there for Turkey. Let's go over to the subcontinent of India and see what they've been doing. Now, India has been in many years, especially 2015, acquiring lots of silver through imports. They do have some silver mining capacity, not very much, but they have some, and they import essentially in a big year like 2018 and 2014 and 15, pretty much the equivalent of, not that they get it all from Mexico, the equivalent of Mexican and Peruvian mines. They get up to 30-35% of world silver mining production, and India is pulling in silver, not because they're stackers. There's occasionally these spikes in investment silver demand when the price goes down. I think that happened in 2015. I think it also happened earlier this year, but generally the silver demand in India is for jewelry, it's for silverware, and also in 2015 when they do solar projects. But the bulk of the silver demand in India is for jewelry, and the reason for that is you have a burgeoning middle class, very large. I think the middle class in India, what they call middle class, is larger than the total population of the United States, and you got a little extra money, you can't afford gold, but you can buy silver jewelry, and you know, maybe they buy 87 times more silver jewelry than they do gold. I don't know. They don't import that much more, but the point is that you can buy silver jewelry relatively inexpensive on a middle class, I guess what you would call a yuppie in India, and that is really driving demand. It's more a function of increased income than it is any type of collapsed metal. So this Indian silver imports are being driven by wealth, not by fear of some type of collapse. Now, the gold buying is different. It's much more historic. It's much more for family heirlooms, for current wealth preservation. Different story, but they do have in the Diwali, there's some silver giving. But silver, from my Indian friends, they tell me they do value it, and they do also, unlike Americans, I have some pictures, and I'll bring them next weekend, from an Indian friend of mine. They will buy today, whereas Americans don't, silverware, but also silver statues. They'll buy tea sets in silver, and it's a sign of middle and upper middle class wealth, and they'll bring it out on occasion. And Indians, I think, buy 60% of the world's silverware, so that's a sign of elegance that the Indians have taken to, but not much. The rest of the world is not using silverware. You really can't find. I did an online search. I think there are no more silversmiths that I'm aware of, unless they're just mom and pop. But there was one I found. It seemed to have been in Boston, and it had been around since like Paul Revere, and it closed down a few years ago. Very hard to find silverware, and because there's not if there was a demand for it, they would be making it, and people would be buying it. All right, so that's India. Do anything else on? Oh yeah, so recently, let me just give you that's 1999, 2018. The most recent month available, February, was low. You get those months in the 300 tons. It's still a lot. But remember, when they buy 1,000 tons in October and 800 tons in November, they kind of slack off every now and then. But doesn't seem to be slowing down. Indian silver imports, maybe it'll be lower this year than last year. Although, if you look at the two, it's actually higher in January and February this year than it was last year. And you never know what will happen. I'm pretty sure there's not going to be a slowdown in Indian silver imports, especially if the price stays low. They are price sensitive. They'll buy when the price is low. I think we're time to get to the Comex. If I covered everything here. Yep, let's get into the Comex now. First, let's look at the trading patterns. And this is something that I've covered before, and I don't get too excited about this. You always hear, you see those I wish I had a pointer for you, those periods where the blue is smaller, meaning that it's closer to the line, and at one point it actually goes above the line. Those are the commercial traders, and they're what they say the commercials are net long or net short. It means if there's 50 of them or 40 of them, net long would be 21 out of the 40, right? And generally, for years, the commercials are net short, and the non-commercials are, it's just a yin-yang thing going on, are net long, and they made a big deal out of it a couple of times where the commercials are long for the first time ever, and it meant something, it meant nothing, and I explained that because that really was just a function of, historically, we'd never seen a 4-month period where the price of silver just went straight down as it did from, I don't know, it was like June 2018 all the way to October, and it's just a function of them closing out their positions and eventually having to go long, and then when the price rose, they went short again. You could see the blue line going down below, and now it's going, we're pretty much moving towards parity again between commercials and non-commercials being long or short. Open interest is about the same. That's the green lines there. It's not the heaviest of trading, but even when you have heavy trading, it's not an indicator of anything. You can see the heaviest trading was last summer. Most of that was selling, I suppose, because the price went down. And then the line at the top third box, that's just the price of silver, and you can see it's hovering around 15. So people pay a lot of attention to this chart. I look at it all the time. I don't draw any conclusions. You hear this, silver set to skyrocket because of this, or silver set to skyrocket because of that, and I just don't see it in the chart, and it hasn't happened, but I guess it's good for a few clicks or subscriptions when you can stand on your head and look at the chart and somehow see something there that really doesn't mean anything other than that's how people are trading it. Okay. Don't mean to be dismissive, but, I mean, let's go back to it. What's happened? The price has gone down from July, it looks like 2000, and this is like a 3-year chart, 2016. So the price has gone down. How do you read this chart that tell you it was going to go up at any point? The price has gone down. These squiggly lines or these bars have moved, but it's just... All right, now let's take a look though at, there's another, well, let's take a big oversight. Let's look at it, what they say, the 30,000 foot level. So all this silver gets traded, and a lot of people keep saying, but it's not backed by anything. There's 600 owners per ounce. No, that's not true. Now, the reason I say it's not true, and then people always will challenge you can't trust the numbers. Okay, all right. But this is where it becomes a believe it you want when you want to believe it, and don't believe it when you don't want to believe it. So, for example, people want to believe that JP Morgan has 800 million ounces of silver. They got silver eagles, which I don't believe. But what I do believe is that JP Morgan's vault does hold 150 million ounces. I don't believe it belongs to them, but it doesn't matter. But when people want to believe that nonsense, that there's 800 million ounces or whatever the number is, and I don't believe that they have silver eagles or they melted them down or ever bought them. That to me is ridiculous. However, if you believe that story and you're convinced of it, part and parcel of it is that the 150 million ounces that JP Morgan owns are in the Comex vaults. Okay, well, if they're in the Comex vaults, that's part and parcel of all the silver that's in the Comex vault. So you can't keep saying what's in the Comex vault isn't there and they're lying if you want to believe the nonsense about JP Morgan. Anyway, The Comex silver stockpiles are made up of different warehouses that are Comex approved. They're coins and things. They are JP Morgan, Brinks. We'll go through all of them. But in total, there are 307 million ounces. Now look at that. That's not a de minimis amount of silver. They're not trading on fumes. If you are trading a contract and you want to, quote, stand for delivery, have at it. There's plenty of silver there. No one's going to crush the Comex and stand for delivery and not get it. And by the way, the traders, they're not there to stand. What are they going to do with the silver? They're there to make fiat profits. They're not stackers. They're there to buy and trade the price of silver. But if they want it, it's there. And these are 1,000-ounce, 999 fine bars that are Comex approved. And that's what's in there. Now, let's take a look at the makeup of those 307 million ounces. We talked about JP Morgan. Well, their vault is swelling with 150 million ounces. The Brinks vault swelling with over 51 million ounces of silver. The dark green is the register, which means you can sell it right away. Eligible means it's 1,000-ounce, 999 fine, but it isn't registered yet for sale, but can easily be flipped into saleable. There's 51 million ounces there. Oh, you got coins and things, C&T. No, they're up to 38 million ounces. Plenty of silver in these vaults. And what does that mean for the owners per ounce? Well, for every contract that's out there, this is better than the fractional reserve dollar. For all the contracts that are out there, the open interest, it's about 1 billion ounces of trading that's going on, but there's 307 million ounces available, and 95, 99% of the contracts don't want the physical silver. And so owners per ounce, if you want to look at it that way, it's not really owners, it's the value of the contracts as divided by the amount of silver that's actually outstanding. It's like 3.2 to 1. Now, it does at times get up a little higher, but there's plenty of silver there. That's not an issue. If anyone's buying silver because JP Morgan's got a lot of silver, or they think that the Comex is going to default, those are just stories. Those are pumper stories. I mean, just look at the numbers. There's no risk here. Your bank is more likely to close down because it doesn't have cash, and even then, they'll just tell you to go away and come back. I mean, this is not a problem. 3.2 to 1. People say it's not right. It's immoral. It's a farce. It's not. This is what people want to do. They trade. They know full well. It's not like this is some hidden secret how much silver is in the vault. In fact, that gives people comfort. There's 307 million ounces. If somebody really wants to have it loaded on a truck and driven somewhere, they don't. If they actually do want to take delivery, they'll probably just leave it in one of these vaults and just have their name put on it. And then they'll sell it again. So it doesn't make any sense for them, for most cases, for them to do it. If people want to buy silver or gold, they don't go and buy Comex contracts and stand for delivery. And furthermore, they're not there with some type of mission to collapse the Comex. Like, they're not mad or anything. They're going to shut it down. And when you hear these people talk about that, it's derangement. It's like that's what the traders are going to do. They're going to go in there and they're going to collapse the Comex. Why would they want to do that? Well, you don't understand because they know. No, they don't. And by the way, if they were deranged enough to do that, the Comex has rules in place which would shut them down from doing it anyway. All right, let's just take one final look at the different holders or warehouses of Comex silver. And you could see Brinks is the silver line. They've got over 50 million. That's a JP Morgan vault at 150 million. HSBC, which is a big holder of gold over on the Comex as well, has about 30 million. Delaware Depository has got about 16 million. Coins and things, C&T, it's got about 40 million. So there they are. Lots of silver in the vaults. And look, the amount of silver that's in the vaults is much higher today than it was in 2011. That's when the price was higher. So you could argue that a lot of silver just being stored and there's enough silver and there's no real shortage whatsoever, and that's why the price is down. All right, let's see what you guys are thinking. If you've enjoyed this or you want to buy gold or silver, please consider supporting the channel by either making all your precious metals purchases through the links below this BitShooter, this YouTube. There's Money Metals Exchange, Golden Eagle Coins, SD Bullion. You can compare pricing and shipping. Not investment advice to buy gold or silver. Don't buy or sell anything based on just looking at this video. This is data as far as I know is correct, but maybe it's not. Do your own research. But if you're going to buy, please consider shopping at those sites because Smaulgld gets a small commission. Also, please consider becoming a Smaulgld patron or donating via Bitcoin or Litecoin. And I'll leave you all the options right on the screen for you. And then we're going to get to what you guys are saying about Saturday night silver with Smaulgld tonight. Let's go over to the comments and see what you're saying. Got the top chat. Remember, tomorrow night, if you're a gold bug, we're going to do Solid Gold Sunday with Smaulgld. So if you have any questions, let me know. All right, let's see. Let's see, we got a full crowd. If you want your comment called out, put at SMAULGLD so I can see it. Otherwise, I just have trouble squinting at the screen. So most of the time, if you're not a regular to the Smaulgld channel, there's a lot of sidebar conversations that happen, often nothing to do with what I'm talking about, which is fine, but it's hard for me to pick out a relevant comment or a question unless you actually call it out by putting in SMAULGLD. If you put Hey Lewis, or I won't see it, probably. All right, Eric Schneider is here. Jeff, new people here. All right, I'm looking for comments to me. Okay, Roger. Smaulgld, but Bookswear says silver is rare. No, we did that. I did that SGT report interview where I explained the rationale, why the gold-silver ratio, where it was, and that's when I got all of, who's this guy, this, and this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, this guy. And then Bixgate did a video saying, this guy doesn't understand, silver should be 1-to-1. Where do they come up with this stuff? The reality is it's not 1-to-1, it's not 15-to-1, it's not 16-to-1, it hasn't been for 100 years, and yet this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I offered a very sane rationale that silver is not. Like, they can't accept the fact that it's not a monetary metal. What are you talking about? Do you know that the word silver in French means money? Okay. And that in the Roman times, if you had a denarius, you can buy a suit? Are they paid their soldiers? I don't know what that has to do with anything. Or silver is so useful. You can put silver in yoga pants, and they are finding uses for it every day. Yeah, and they're doing the same with copper and other metals. Anyway, sorry about that, Ron. You get me going on that. What else do we? Okay, Pablo Pina, like my Smaulgld mug beside and on standby with coffee. So he's enjoying himself tonight. Notice I'm not getting cut off tonight. I always get cut off. If I start talking about something in the news, I seem that the channel just goes blank. Talk about silver, I don't have a problem. I just jinxed myself. Pablo Pina. I found my Smaulgld Hyper Classic mug in the bath with my boys. Doubles as a bath toy. Well, nothing beats the Smaulgld Classic and Super Classic mugs. If you want them, go straight to Smaulgld.com. You can purchase them. Remember, I ship from Smaulgld headquarters. The Classic and Super Classic mugs, priority shipping, 2-day shipping in the continental U.S. It's all included in the price. You get them in 2 days. All the other mugs, the beer steins, pet bowls, you can order from the Smaulgld shop. That gets sent out by Zazzle. And they do a pretty good job, but they take about a week for you to get your products. All right, what else do we have? Copper. Roger. But Bill Holter's been saying for years that Comex would default. Yeah, he trots that story out every couple of years. It's just nonsense. Actually, if you're interested, look up why Comex won't default to Smaulgld. I spent more than enough time explaining why that story is ridiculous. It gets trotted out. It's a pumper story. It sells subscriptions. Maybe it sells metals. It's not going to happen. Never has happened, but people persist in believing that. DW, looking forward to Sunday Gold Night. Yep. Solid Gold Sunday with Smaulgld. All right, but tonight is silver night. All right, I think we don't have any more. Do we have any more questions or comments? If not, I'm going to give you the Bernie 10-second countdown. That's a good thing. Yeah, so I'm going to give you that 10-second countdown. If I don't have any more questions or comments, we're going to sign off with no interruptions tonight.
So, I'm going to give you 10 seconds, and then we're going to say goodnight to you. And that's a good thing. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1%, 0. I think it's time for me to say goodnight. And if you're in the 1%, you better give it up.
All right. Smaulgld.com to get your mugs, buy your precious metals. There's coffee there too you can buy. And also Bitdefender if you're interested. New affiliate agreements. Thank you very much.